This topic has come up as we have over the last year under Chuck's leadership, talked about how Extension can be engaged in the larger land-grant university mission. And as a result of some conversations at APLU and some activities taking place there, we felt like this would be an appropriate conversation to have this afternoon. So to get us started, I'm going to ask Scott Reed to introduce the topic and the speakers and get us started. So Scott, if you would please.
All right, thanks very much, Ed. I think it's fair to say that the reason I'm engaged today is that the conversation is a natural progression of our October conversation about engagement at the National Extension Directors and Administrators meeting that we held in Portland, with a focus today on the intersection of community and economic engagement. So joining me on today's webinar are Sheila Martin, who's a relatively new Vice President at APLU for Economic Development and Community Engagement. Sheila was formerly at Portland State University, so she and I have a history of working together in a very productive way, and I'm looking forward to continuing that relationship, Sheila. And then we have with us three university leaders, Marshall Stewart, Vice Chancellor at the University of Missouri in the Office of Extension and Engagement. He's also the Chief Engagement Officer of the Division of the System. Dawn Melian-Putton, Vice Chancellor for Extension and Outreach at Southern University, and Ashley Stokes, who is Assistant Vice President for Engagement and Deputy Director of Extension at Colorado State University. And each of them will illustrate how Extension complements campus-based economic engagement efforts at their university, and what are some of the challenges that we collectively face at bringing these efforts together. And then, of course, we'd want to have everyone who's tuned into today's call to share in the conversation around those same kind of questions. Now, before I turn it over to Sheila, let me just indicate that the attraction to me has always been to live up to the reason that Extension is located at a land-grant university and to develop the kind of central connections for Extension to key university offices and functions. Now, in respect to economic engagement, I'll bet that our universities are different in that regard. In my case, there's an Office of Commercialization and Corporate Development associated with the Research Office, and that has caused me to develop some wonderful, productive relationships with the Vice President for Research at this university. And there's several benefits to this in my perspective. One is it stimulates community-based extension educators to expand their portfolio of work. You know, in the not too distant past, economic development and working with entrepreneurs was not a priority of field-based extension educators. That is changing here. Secondly, our people, by virtue of being community located, can perform a level of screening for businesses and entrepreneurs before they begin to consume campus resources. So we kind of do a prioritization of work that finds their way into the commercialization office. Thirdly, by virtue of connecting to the research office, it enhances the researcher extension relationship in some real meaningful ways. You know, we are now, I think, behaving and performing better around this idea of broader impacts, you know, that adopts the theme of the second funding criterion of the National Science Foundation. And finally, doing this kind of bridge work yields positive effects in our communities. So I believe that as a university, we are serving those people and businesses and potential businesses in ways that we could not have done before. So having said all that, let me just say that we have a great opportunity to become involved in this new Commission of Economic and Community Engagement that in my mind provides a village green and an incentive to bring together extension and economic development offices, whatever it's called, at your respective places. So Sheila, would you help us understand a little bit about the opportunity?
Sure. Thank you, Scott. And thank you everyone who's joined us this afternoon. I am newly arrived at APLU, and my experience with Extension goes much farther back than working with Scott, which was a wonderful experience, but it really goes back to my days as a PhD student at Iowa State University, when I was working with a faculty member who was jointly appointed between the department, the economics department, and extension, and we were working together on rural community economic development projects. And I've actually worked throughout my career with extension at various different universities, and really appreciate what extension brings to the table here. So I'd like to start by talking about, advance the slide, please, Angie. I'd like to talk about this recently launched commission on economic and community engagement. And we joined two groups that used to exist at APLU, the Commission on Innovation and Economic Prosperity and the Council on Engagement and Outreach. And while this began before I arrived at APLU, I agreed when I came here that it made perfect sense to join these two groups together, because I believe that it really allows universities to lead in the economic and community engagement field. Because in my experience, the economic development and community development profession talks a lot about working together and talks a lot about inclusive engagement, but universities can really show the way about how this can work, about how we can bring about more inclusive engagement, more inclusive economic growth to our communities. So in forming this new commission, we have embraced an inclusive definition that, that takes the work of both of these groups and puts them together. And so our mission is going to be to develop and demonstrate and test and share best practices in inclusive economic and community engagement. And we really believe that extension leaders is going to be incredibly important to our success. Okay, Angie, next slide, please. Great. So I just want to give you a little bit of information about the flavor of our work and the places where we do work, which is in talent, innovation, and place. So the talent space is where really across the university we work on human capital and talent development in one way or another, whether that's directly as educators in the classroom or indirectly with our communities. The innovation piece is the piece that is the research arm of the university, the technology transfer arm, creating creative works that are shared with our community, developing new companies, and really being that problem-solving resource for our community. And then the place piece is where we connect with our community in order to help to create more vibrant places. And so by combining our work in talent, innovation, and place, we feel that we honor our commitment as public and land-grant universities to be of and for our community. Okay, so we are inviting extension folks to be involved in the new Commission on Economic and Community Engagement in several different ways. First, do that is by joining a learning exchange discussion forum, and these will be organized discussion forums on a particular topic. And later on, or I think with the invitation to this webinar, there was a link to the sign up for leading or joining a learning exchange forum, and please feel free to take a look at that. The second way you can get engaged is to join the summer meeting planning committee. We will be meeting in State College, Pennsylvania, jointly with the Council on Research in June. And we are looking for people to help us plan out the agenda and make that summer meeting a success. And then finally, we have a program called the Innovation and Economic Prosperity University. And this is a designation that universities can pursue, and it demonstrates that they have a long-standing commitment in economic and community engagement. And the flyer that we sent around with the invitation to the webinar also includes information about that program. And so we're very happy to answer any questions about that of anyone who wants to think about pursuing the designation. Okay, so with that, I'll turn it over to Marshall.
Well, thank you for having me today. And Sheila, thank you for your leadership and congratulations on your new role. We're glad to have you in that role. And I'm excited about the opportunity we have today to share with colleagues, not only Extension, but across engagement. So as we look at the next slide, I think we've got Angie here driving. I wanted to kind of set the stage today by really talking about how I see this work. I've spent most of my career in the last, almost 20 years now in extension work, and really deeply involved in that. And so the opportunity I've had over the last few years, couple of years here, 2.5 years here to work at the University of Missouri and to really think about how you broaden that out and how do you become more of an engaged university using the strengths of extension and then building into a broader context of what I think the modern land grant is all about. I really want to start with this statement that what works here may not work there. And so I think that's really important, that each of us have to realize that each of our institutions are unique and different. Every situation is different. So some of the things I'm going to share as some examples as I get through this, I always want to start with that because all of us sit in different institutions with a different context, a different environment, different leadership, and different histories. And I think we have to realize that as we walk into this. But one of the first things I believe you have to think about as you try to extend and engage at a community or deal with economic development in a more maybe broader way across the campus is you have to think about what the burning platform is. And when I got here to the University of Missouri, obviously they've been through some interesting and challenging times. But the real bottom line of all that to me was that the burning platform here was that the value of public higher education, that narrative, had really been lost. And I think that's not only true in Missouri, but I think it's true everywhere. And I think one of the real strengths that can come out of being more intentionally and more broadly engaged is to really think about how we regain that. And I think engagement is a key to that. So one of the first things I would have you think about is what's going on that you don't know about. If you're sitting in an extension slot, working in cooperative extension, for instance, how do you reach out and look and see what else is going on the campus that you may or may not know about? On the transverse side of it, if you're in engagement, maybe learning more about what's going on in extension would be healthy to understand how those things can connect. Because oftentimes, unfortunately, those things do look in or work in isolation. So I think that's important. Look around you, see what's going on first. Next thing is to see how what you do can bring value to someone else and vice versa. I just came out of a meeting with our MU health system here at the University of Missouri. And that's an example of where we're taking their great assets and ours to nutrition education and trying to push that together so that when we deal with the preventative side, they deal more with the treatment side, that it works together. Again, that hopefully sets the stage for what I'll go through over the next couple of minutes to give you some insights and some things we've learned here. As you do that, establishing trust and relationships is really important. And some of the things we've done here, we established with the approval of the Chancellor and the MU Engagement Council. As council stretches across the entire institution, it is made up of faculty, senior and junior faculty, administrators. It has people from all walks of life in terms of the university community. It comes from athletics. It comes from alumni. We have roughly 150 or so people that affiliate with this council now. They meet monthly and spend time thinking about how do we engage the university in broader ways. And what it's done is created a rich space for them to have these kind of conversations. So I think that's something that I would encourage you to think about. I think it would work on many campuses, and many campuses do have versions of this, but it certainly worked well for us. And one of the things that came out of that was this thing called Engagement Impact Inventory. And I wanted to show you these two links. I'm not going to open them up today, but at your leisure, you may want to click on those. The first one will give you an inventory that we did, an assessment of all the engagement that the university was already doing through colleges of education, through our College of Arts and Science, our College of Law, College of Business. It showed us all the touch points that were already going on that we could build on and tether together in different ways. The other piece you'll see there is something called All Things Missouri, which is a tool that we created to bring all the data sets of the state of Missouri together and then look at how we can intersect with those. What's happening in economic development, what's happening in healthcare, what's happening in so the environment. Our faculty across the campus can tap into, much less the citizens can, to help them do a better job in research and innovation and business development or whatever that area they're interested in. So again, these are two things that I wanted to share with you today that you may want to take a look at that we've created here uniquely for Missouri over the last couple of years. Next slide. Next thing I would say is know your state. We have really focused heavily the last 2 years on knowing the state of Missouri. What is the state of the state? We've done that through quantitative, qualitative, and third-party review processes. We did a very deep dive in data. We also did a deep dive through community conversations. And then we also had a third-party review of folks, experts come in and really look at us from the outside and say, have you ever thought about this? Or could you tie this together in a different way? Those conversations really were helpful to us in helping us redesign our extension network and what we do in the cooperative extension world. It helped inform us in continuing education and all the work we do there in that space. And it's also helped us build out a better platform for broader engagement with the university. The three themes that came up in our state, no surprise here, were we needed to have a stronger economy, stronger emphasis in education, in particular K-12 and workforce preparation, and then also better healthcare education and access. Those two issues around health were really important. What we've done in response to that is we have realigned our staff. In all 114 counties that you see on the map here, we have placed, and we'll have placed in the month of January 2019, a county engagement specialist. They will have a disciplined focal area of economy, education, or health. If they're an economic specialist, there'll be somebody looking at business development, which may be in, say, agriculture, if that's what matters in that county. In another county, we have somebody focused in education. Many of you would be very familiar with 4-H, obviously, and youth development. They may be youth development, education oriented. A third county may be a health person that's really focused in nutrition education, those kind of areas. And if you look at the map, you'll see most of these are in trios. So you have trios of counties working together across these three different areas where you have a person based in a county that has an expertise, but they're working in tandem with the other two experts, be it in health, education, or the economy. The other piece of this is we've made this open to the whole campus. So if a faculty member out of the College of Business wants to work with and tap into a county and work with some of our folks, we're making that possible now. If someone out of the College of Medicine wants to work with some of our faculty in nutrition education, we're figuring out ways to tie that together, which brings a much richer knowledge base for our people across the state to work with. So again, opening the campus is really important. Next slide. I'm going to let you click on this video. This will give you a sense of what we do at the university system, and I'll talk about these points.
Yes, I am a nurse, and yes, I have appointment in the School of Nursing, but I have a joint relationship with University Extension and Engagement because we do nursing outreach. We engage nurses who are already practicing throughout the state of Missouri. I think we are doing things differently. The fact of the matter is Marshall Stewart has led the initiative to rejuvenate, to reposition, to realign University Extension within this entire campus and system.
Obviously, we look at 4 campuses now. We think about what we can do across those 4 campuses, but it all really is not about the campuses. It's not really even about the university system. It's about Missouri. When I think about what's changed in MU Extension, I think about several different areas. Number one, there's been great work here for many years, and we're lifting that work up and ensuring that people understand on the campus and across the great state of Missouri what's going on in Extension. Second thing I think about is how we are now partnering in new and innovative ways with other colleagues on campus, across the other campuses of the University of Missouri system to ensure that that knowledge and expertise gets out to the citizens of Missouri. And then lastly, I think about how we are engaging and how we're trying to figure out ways so it's not just our ideas, but the ideas of those that live in those communities coming together with our expertise to create a more sustainable solution to many of the challenges facing Missourians. As we update the way we work, we remain committed to improving the lives of each and every Missourian.
So when you look at that video, it really lines out what we will be doing over the next few months. And as we go into 2019, we'll be working hard to develop these relationships on our campuses, creation of a campus or system-wide engagement council. I've already described what we have here at the University of Missouri. Engagement opportunities and strengths, assessing those, where are the opportunities, low-hanging fruit, and then looking at creating those program connections and opportunities. So I wanted to give you a flavor of the next step we're looking at. And then our last slide that I'll give you here very quickly will give you just some of the successes we've had since 2016. Art on the Move is a program at our College of Arts and Sciences where student art goes into communities. They have a showcase around art in a local community in Missouri. Our Veterans Legal Clinic helps veterans deal with their VA benefits and those kind of issues that many veterans deal with. And that was something that was already here, and we're now tying that to our extension network as another service that we can provide through that network. Our journalism workshop for newspaper editors used to be all on this campus. Now we do those throughout the state of Missouri for newspaper editors in local places. Our Missouri Athletics Ambassadors, a relationship we now have between our extension councils in the county and our Mizzou Athletics Department, has been a very rich and vital part of increasing our brand and our status in communities. Science on Wheels is graduate students who go out and do science and STEM education for local students, in particular underserved populations, underserved communities. We work closely with enrollment management on recruitment as we never have before, and they work with us to provide resources and materials to help extend the brand of the institution and the educational outreach. We have a partnership with the Office of Research, probably like none other in the country, where we share a vice chancellor, an associate vice chancellor for extension and engagement and research to work across broader impacts of the institution. We also have created faculty communicating science workshops for faculty across the campus for our School of Journalism to help them understand how to communicate science better. We've also been in partnership with our Office of Research on our CSU management and oversight. So we're a part of that application, working together with them. Then we just created, and we're launching this now, a Mizzou Innovates effort, which is basically students who want to take on a grand challenge in Missouri. There will be a Chancellor's Award given out next October for students who tackle the grand challenges of Missouri. So I'm going to stop there and go to the next speaker, but thank you for the opportunity to share.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm going to talk to you about the Southern University perspective. Southern University is an 1890 land-grant institution in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Southern system is the only HBCU system in the country, meaning that we have the main campus, the Baton Rouge campus, and we also have 4 additional campuses. The law school, the Shreveport campus, which is primarily a 2-year campus, the New Orleans campus, which is a 4-year campus that primarily tackles urban issues, and what's most unique about us, research and extension, form the 5th campus of the Southern University system. And needless to say, that's where I'm housed. In preparation for this discussion, I am going to address the 2 questions that were presented. How does extension complement campus-based economic engagement efforts and the challenges we face? Well, what we've been trying to do is engage with the larger system. And I'm glad to hear you say that you're in a process of system-wide engagement, Marshall, because we're doing something very different. We're doing something very similar, excuse me. And the message that we've been sharing with all 4 of the other campuses in the Southern University system is let us your segue into the local community. All of the campuses serve a statewide area, but they're primarily focused on the locations closest to them. So we've, in extension, we've been sharing, let us be your segue into the local communities. And we do that by a number of ways. One of the most popular ways where we've gotten the largest amount of feedback is hosting listening sessions. And with these listening sessions, we go into the community, we introduce ourselves, but we tell the attendees at the listening sessions, we're here. It's primarily qualitative research, but we want to hear those things that are important to them. And then the second phase of that is coming up with some type of plan, a community blueprint, what have you, so that we can address the concerns that the members of the community have, whether they're social, economical, political, just whatever those concerns are. Our agents are in strategic locations across the state. So we engage with the larger university community by serving as community partners and having a local presence. And as with the other extension programs, we aid in the transfer of knowledge. Next slide, please. Some of the examples. The Baton Rouge campus is the primary academic campus. And we work with the admissions office, and we're often an introduction to some of the rural communities. We find through our youth development programs, especially those that target younger kids before they get to high school, that they hear Southern, but they don't really know anything about Southern. So through some of our youth development opportunities, we bring kids on the campus as early as 5 and 6 years old, and they get to experience living in the dorms. So by the time they get to be high school students, when they're looking for colleges to attend, they're already familiar with Southern. So it often comes up, and we come up as one of the first places they would like to attend. We partner with the Southern University Law School and doing a lot of work with farmers, particularly as it relates to agricultural legal issues. And that's a partnership that has really been beneficial for the last 20 plus years, beginning with the Black Farmers lawsuit in the late 1990s. We partner with the nursing school on initiatives related to nutrition, health, and wellness. And for a while, we had a joint appointment with the nursing school, someone who, an RN, who was housed here in Extension, who went around the state doing community health work, and that was a beneficial partnership. We partner with the business school here on the Baton Rouge campus, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in the next slide, but doing small business development with urban and rural citizens who are interested in starting small businesses. Most recently, we partnered with the Shreveport campus, and we were able to write a grant so that they could start a food incubator for people in the area who were interested in processing and learning more about food preparation and preservation. And I mentioned earlier that the New Orleans campus was primarily an urban campus, where they're doing a lot of work with juvenile justice, and we assist them with doing some of those studies too. Next slide, please. Okay. Some of the challenges we face are that the larger community, the larger academic community still does not understand the primary goal of extension. So we're always having those conversations. But in addition to that, most of the campus-based efforts on the Baton Rouge main academic campus are centralized to those communities closest to Baton Rouge. So that leaves a gap across the state. So that's one area where we've been really instrumental in helping to fill those gaps. Because people don't know what we do here in Extension, oftentimes there's perceived competition. And that's just something that we're going to have to work on with telling our story more effectively. There's a perception that agriculture has a lot of money from the federal side, from the federal formula funds. So it becomes a challenge sometimes when we just tell folks, no, we can't use our resources to do that, or, this is something dedicated. So it just creates some interesting conversations. And one of the biggest challenges we have is there seems to always be a disconnection between Extension state staff and the academic faculty. And that's something that we work on daily. Next slide. I mentioned the small business development. And I'll go to the second point. In Extension, we have a small business rural development center, and that's an Extension-led effort. And we work with folks in rural communities primarily who are interested in starting different businesses, to include small farm development. Where here in the Baton Rouge campus, there's a small business development center. And that center works with people in the urban areas who are interested in starting a business. Sometimes there's duplication of effort. Sometimes, it gets to be territorial, but for the most part, we complement each other's efforts and activity. About 10 years ago, we received funding to start, to open the Sustainable Agriculture Rural Development Institute. And it's a community hub in Southwest Louisiana. And through there, we serve a 10-parish area doing agricultural development, youth engagement development, small business development. So that has been one of our primary tools to bring the resources of the university to the communities, as well as a driver for economic enhancement. Next slide. And this is our mobile technology education unit. This has probably been one of our more attention-getting efforts. When we go to different communities with this vehicle, people come out to find out what it is that we're talking about. And we offer 4 certification courses through this vehicle, but we found that the larger university will often come out with us when we're going out with this, so that they can reach the audiences that they're trying to reach as well. I mentioned that we offer 4 certification courses. One is Sustainable Urban Agriculture, Small Ruminant, Master Small Ruminant Program, Small Business Development, and Food and Farm Safety certification courses. And the evaluation from those 4 certification courses have indicated that the instruction is making a positive impact on the participants' lives, and they're experiencing greater economic gain. And that concludes my comments.
Well, great. Thank you very much. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to share some things from the CSU perspective. And actually, Dawn, I'm from Baton Rouge, so it's great to hear about things going on there. And so I do have a train going by, speaking of economic development, so hopefully that doesn't get too loud at any point here. But here at CSU, we definitely see tremendous value in having strong connections between Extension and community and economic development. We've had some really unique opportunities here and how we've been able to bring those together. So I'm definitely excited to share some of that with you today. And so as far as how that really came together here at CSU, Extension has always been university-wide. So it's never been located within just the College of Agriculture, and there are pros and cons to that across different universities, but for us here at least, it's always been across the university. And so that's kind of had some opportunities with us reaching across our various colleges, including places like the College of Business, also working really closely with our Vice President for Research. That's something that's been very strong for quite some time here at CSU. And about 12 years ago, Lou Swanson, who many of y'all know, was approached to be able to really put together outreach and extension and engagement here at CSU. And again, this was still going to be across the entire university. And so he really recognized the need for having community and economic development as being a really important part of the Office of Engagement. And so what he did was he approached someone who was a county commissioner, and it took a little time to be able to convince her to become a part of the university. That was not something that was very typical especially here. But she was extremely well connected, understands the perspectives of commissioners, definitely has a lens for economic development, workforce development across the state of Colorado. And so he was able to bring her in as being part of our office. So she's the associate vice president for engagement here. And with that came very strong ties to Extension. And she grew up in agriculture and had excellent relationships across Extension as well from that. And so trying to bring all of those together, there were just some really natural fits that we were able to do with that. So it was great having her join us. And then with that, then we were later able to add some positions. And one of the positions in her Office of Community and Economic Development that's part of engagement, one of her staff members has a split appointment in Extension. So as we think about community development, especially, that person has a partial Extension appointment. And so it really brought that more to the forefront of a lot of our discussions. That individual, the other part of their role, they oversee our regional campuses that we've been really developing. And in those regional campuses, they connect very much with Extension in those areas as well. And those regional campuses have a very strong lens for economic development, but workforce development in particular with that. Most recently, in our Office for Community and Economic Development, we've brought in someone that has a very strong economic development background. He's worked with economic developers from another state where he was previously, sits down very regularly with economic development professionals in the various counties, and that's been a great addition. And he's also a part of our Extension group as well. He's really joined in with that and meets very regularly with our county Extension offices. There have been a lot of benefits for having the structure that we do, where we have engagement. Extension's part of engagement. We have Community and Economic Development Office that's also part of engagement, and really working across those groups has been really good. I think at first, if you were to ask people in Extension if they really had roles in community development or economic development, they may have at first said that not really. But as we've had these individuals really interacting and working very closely across all of Extension, now that's really changed. And we have our reporting units where we have these topic areas that Extension programmatically or arranged in. And we have one that's around community development. And now economic development is a conversation all the time with those groups. Also in our office, as far as kind of that structure goes, while I'm on that topic, Lou is the vice president for engagement here at CSU, and he's a director of Extension. And we have myself as being the assistant vice president for engagement and deputy director of Extension. So our ability to kind of work across that engagement office and really work with our community and economic development office is really strong. So I think the structure that we have has allowed for that in really good ways. And having Extension, as really an organization that dovetails very much with community and economic development that we have. So some of the relationships that we have that make this really possible, working with our commissioners, having Cathay's position in our office where we're able to interact very well with our commissioners has been very good. Having that economic development person that can work with Extension and work with economic developers in our counties has been great. He's brought a lot of tools to the table that really some of our counties haven't had access to. And as a university, we've been able to have access to those tools, and it's just really opened up a lot of doors with that. And of course, with Extension, I mean, we are very driven locally and how we are working and how we set our priorities and what's relevant. And so by being able to have these tools, have these connections within community economic development right there strongly connected with Extension, it's really helped us to be relevant, especially as our counties are looking to diversify economically, especially on the western slope of Colorado. Coal is not as prominent as it has been, and so our counties are very interested in how as a university and how as Extension what kind of roles can we play in looking at that diversification. And then to look at how this connects with Extension and how this has really developed over time. I mentioned that we are very bottom-up oriented, so our agents and our specialists out in our counties, they work with their advisory boards, they work very closely with the commissioners and being able to understand what's relevant. And then by having these campus resources and having community and economic development within our umbrella has really enabled them to bring new tools to those counties that they hadn't really had before necessarily. And so it's even though there's some two-way motions that go, it's very strongly, with those arrows of relevancy coming up through our counties. And as I mentioned earlier too, that in Extension, at some point they may have maybe not have thought that they had as strong of a role in community development or in economic development. But now, each year, we just had our forum where everyone came together in October, and going to our community development programming unit, there was a ton of discussion around economic development. And so, again, having that point person within our office has just brought a level of tools and that they are feeling more and more comfortable with and being able to bring to their communities. So, so having that position with community development, having our associate vice president that was a former commissioner has brought a lot of opportunity to us, and having all of that across in one umbrella where we can have just so much communication and sharing of information. I think it's really opened up a lot of doors for us that I think otherwise would have been really difficult. So I hope that helps with some of the background at CSU and how it really developed here.
All right, I'll pick it back up and facilitate the conversation before turning it back to Ed for any wrap-up comments he wants to make, not later than the top of the hour. Thank you to all who kind of joined us in this presentation, especially to Sheila, who's created an environment for Extension to step into what I'll call a bigger role around economic engagement, and to my colleagues, Marshall, Dawn, and Ashley. As I listen to your comments, I'm inclined to observe that when you've seen one Extension service, you've seen one Extension service. And it's clear that collectively we've covered a bunch of ground today and set the stage for your reactions and questions, or maybe comments about how you're doing it on your campuses. So let's open it up.
Scott, this is Michelle Rogers at University of Delaware, and we have established a university-wide outreach and engagement council, which I co-chair along with someone from our policy administration group, but it has over 30 units across the university who are doing outreach and engagement work. So while I think Extension is probably the largest one of all of those, there's over 30 different units from all across the university. And so we have that as one council trying to coordinate all of us who are doing outreach and engagement work. And then additionally, we have the campus compact between universities and the region and doing that work. But that's how Extension has come into this, and how we're, and then we have 5 primary thematic partnerships that we've established across the university. One in health, and one in education, one in the arts, one in community development. The 5th one, but we have particular partnerships that are then doing subcommittee type of work around outreach and engagement. So that's the structure here at University of Delaware that's fairly new and really came out of our initial application of the Carnegie Foundation, which caused the conversation to recognize that we really didn't have coordination here, and kind of late cutting into the system, but that's what we put together. And I think we have some specific things that we're hoping to accomplish on that, including a more community-friendly campus.
Thank you, Michelle. That's very revealing and helpful. And it reminds me that there are probably a number of us that are in the process of applying or reapplying for the current Carnegie elective classification for community development. I know we at Oregon State have a team busily at work. Who else has some experiences they want to share?
Well, hi, Scott. This is Roger Rennekamp. I thought I'd add a little bit to the discussion as we move ahead. You know, here at Ohio State, we do not have what we would call university-wide engagement. We have our extension organization embedded in our College of Food, Agricultural, and Environmental Sciences, and then our Office of Outreach and Engagement is headed by Stephen Myers. And a couple of things that, of course, we have done here is we, too, have established what we call a Community Engagement Council that I think, as Michelle described, you know, has representatives from probably about 30 units from across the campus. And I guess the other thing that we really have done that we're very excited about is we've taken what used to be our state extension conference that would bring together all of our county extension educators from across the state together for a couple of days. That group would be about 400 people. And then our Office of Outreach and Engagement was simultaneously, or at least at a little bit different time of the year, offering a community engagement forum, and that would bring together 30 or 40, I'm sorry, about 300 or 400 people from on campus who were trying to reach into the communities, and they were meeting at separate times, which didn't seem very productive to us. So last year we in fact combined those two meetings where we are having what we call a community engagement conference, and each year is a different theme. Last year we brought together those two conferences around the theme of health and wellness, and together we had a conference of 800 people instead of 300 or 400 people. This year our theme is on sustainability, and we're expecting the same type of thing to happen again this year. We do reserve a day at either the beginning or the end to transact a lot of our extension business that we do, our Joint Council on Extension Professionals, and our different association awards are presented at that time. So it's kind of a stayover day for extension, but that's worked very well for us, connecting the people in the communities with the people on campus who would like to reach into communities. So I thought I'd share that. It's worked very well for us. So thanks for the opportunity.
Great. Thank you, Roger.
Roger, this is Sheila. I'll look for you at that conference. I'm going to be there this year.
I'm so happy that you'll be there. We'll see if we attract the same number as we did last year, but I'm so glad that that you'll be there. I think it's a fun event. I think you'll enjoy being here with us. Thanks.
Maybe I'll take advantage of some of the quiet time here to reflect on what I'll call lessons. You know, I'll stop short of calling them best practices, but the kinds of activities I'm learning about across the landscape at different extension services often include something like an outreach and engagement council, and we've configured one here as well. I invite every one of our college deans to appoint someone to the council. So this is not a faculty-driven council, it's more of a leadership council, and the people that deans appoint are typically the individual or department head or associate dean who's responsible for the outreach part of the college's work. And our council meets only quarterly, but I'm really intrigued by some of the observations about very large councils with faculty involvement that meet more regularly. I'm intrigued by that. Some other lessons we've had at Oregon State is the value of providing outreach and engagement awards to hold up the kind of community-based work done across the university landscape beyond extension, but including extension work, in order to illustrate the various dimensions of what engaged outreach and engaged scholarship look like. Some universities I know of have some way to engage new faculty in community-based work. You know, we happen to do a bus tour, and I've heard of new faculty bus tours elsewhere across the country. And here at Oregon State, we have at least one major annual event that's focused on a theme or a topic that we believe would have some broad appeal. And we started that having joined the Imagining America University Consortium that's all about arts, humanities, and the design. And so we have now held major events that include community members, extension faculty, and non-extension faculty to have a conversation about how to move more of the university into the state. And then the first one was around arts, humanities, and design. The second one was around humanitarian engineering. Our Dean of Engineering came to me and said that they just can't afford to send faculty and students around the world to work in developing countries. And weren't there some humanitarian engineering opportunities in Oregon? And the fact is there are many of those. And so we've now begun some engineering work in that regard. And the most recent one was focused on a recently categorized industry in the U.S. That contributes to the gross national product in a big way. And that's what's collectively called the outdoor industry. And this outdoor economy is worth about $900 billion in the United States. In Oregon, it's about a $16.5 billion industry, so very significant. And we've recently convinced the Provost through the development of an investment grade proposal to stimulate a new outreach and engagement effort to the workforce associated with this outdoor economy. And Sheila, I think I'm going to be kind of bringing that work to the new commission in order to kind of share what we're learning and maybe gain some other perspectives. Who else has some experiences or perspectives to share? I mean, we go back to the two questions that we posed as well. You know, what, how do you think? In fact, there probably is some points of disagreement here. I have people in my extension service that think we're experiencing mission creep. We're getting into territory we shouldn't be in. So I appreciate perspectives on that question as well. And/or what are some of the challenges or barriers that are faced at advancing this kind of extension work?
Scott, I know, Michelle, again, I know we've talked about this, but we are addressing across the university what our promotion and tenure process is and how we're going to incorporate outreach and engagement with this new focus. And so we've relooked at that. Of course, that has to go all through Faculty Senate, and it's not an easy process, but trying to redefine outreach and engagement, and not just for extension faculty, but for all faculty and staff, what kinds of things can be listed and part of their promotion and tenure. So it has been, it's not only, but it certainly has been cause for a lot of conversation to try and does raise the bar on outreach and engagement when you talk about promotion and tenure, but it also has been a barrier to why some people feel they can't be engaged.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, engaged scholarship, is the kind of the currency of the day. And some on my Outreach and Engagement Council have kind of raised the question, is engaged scholarship different than the scholarship of engagement? So we're in that conversation currently.
Yeah, and if I can just add to that, to what Michelle and Scott were both saying, at CSU, we also have a Provost Council on Engagement that it has faculty representation from all of our colleges and units. And we're in the process of right now of rewriting the faculty manual, and that will be going forward to the council at large in February, it looks like. But we have been able to really expand the language in there and give some specifics, tie into some of the materials that are on our Office of Engagement website, and just to be able to help with that question of when it comes down to promotion and tenure, is this really going to be rewarded? So trying to give resources to our departments and to our colleges is what this looks like, and rewarding faculty, and especially those that are working with extension that don't necessarily have extension appointments. And so we're able to give some of those specific examples through our website that they can go to, and it's referenced in the manual with a link to our site so that they can really look at those and see what outreach and engagement looks like. And so, and we've also been able to, through the Provost, to put it in our letters of offer. So positions going out, it's in the offer letter about how the university values engaged work. So those have been helpful for us.
Thank you, Ashley. It makes me kind of wonder aloud whether, to the extent we begin to bring faculty to us with engagement as a work category, then we owe them some prototypical standards for how we go about evaluating engagement work.
This is Sheila in my wearing my PSU hat. We certainly attracted faculty once we became known for doing outreach and engagement work. We began to attract faculty who were particularly interested in doing that, and so if it builds on itself.
Anyone else? I'm watching the clock tick towards the top of the hour, so not hearing anyone else want to jump in. Ed, do you want to take us home?
Sure will. Thank you, Scott. And I want to thank all of our speakers today and for the great conversation we had. I think we have some challenges and a lot of things to think about for those of us that are embedded in colleges of agriculture on how we can be engaged in the larger university mission. So we appreciate very much all the presenters and the work they've done, and want to wish everyone a happy holiday, and we look forward to seeing you after the new year on the next topic. So everyone enjoy your holidays.
Great. Thanks, Ed. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.